Welcome everyone to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you all here, especially because I have two wonderful people with me today, and I am giddy. I really am giddy about this conversation we're going to have. We're going to dive into the astrology of this year. And I am not an astrology expert by any means, but I love astrology, and I try to take as much as I can from listening to these beautiful humans talk about it. So who better than to have them on and give us some insights for what's to come in 2024 according to the astrology. So Shannon Takacs and Kitty Foss, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome. How are you all doing?
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Ginette.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm happy always to talk about the stars. So,
All right.
and it's quite the year. So there's just no ands, ifs, or buts. We are on the runway. There's no getting off this plane. It's ready to go.
You know what I gotta say? That's how Spirit has been giving it to me too. That January, they're like, sorry, but it's moving. It's fast. It's happening. It's a good thing, but get running kind of thing was the energy. And so it's interesting that you're giving that runway analogy because I really feel that from a non-astrology standpoint. So I love when the two of them connect. So let's start with where did we start? What's happened? We've stepped into January. What did we step into? Is it a mud puddle or are we stepping onto the ice?
Kitty, share what you shared with us to start before we hit.
So we started the year, we know Mercury went direct. So that was, that was a big deal. Moved by the 4th into Capricorn. And Shannon, God love your Capricorn moon. But we had a grand trine. And a grand trine for those is an epic conversation that was going to happen all year long. I always tell people it's like a milkshake and you put a flavoring in it, you can't pull it back out. It's always mixed in there. And it was a grand trine, and it's a lot of daily energy because it was a sun, our sun that was in Capricorn, our moon, which was in Leo, the sign of the private energy of the sun. So that's interesting all by itself. And I happen to be a Leo moon, and Jupiter that's in Taurus. So this is really about the larger structure, how we're pushing the limits and the boundaries by holding ourselves, that Leo moon of holding ourselves and what hypnotizes us and our space, so it expands. And when we do that, we are in tremendous expansion that is stabilizing us, and it's stabilizing us as a species. And so that's a really interesting kind of overview of the year. Can I hold my individual space so the bigger structure is able to expand and change? And of course, with Pluto sitting there at 29 degrees of Capricorn, transforming what that's going to look like. Neptune in its last year of Pisces, end of a 14-year cycle, getting ready to go to Aries, which is going to spark spirit in it's a different direction. It's the different dreams. That's why I said we're taxing on the runway, and there's the only thing that's going to stop us is the what are they called, the air marshals maybe tackling somebody along the way, but we're taking off. That's what we're doing, and it's very fast. It is extremely fast. Yeah,
that momentum. I really like what you said about stabilizing us as a species, because that's what I really got too from my guides with 2020 to 2024, shaking us up enough, asking us who we are, so that here we step into 2024 knowing ourselves better and rooting into it and creating from there, which is like a stability in a sense. So I think that's so cool. Shannon, what's your take?
Well, I was just listening to Kitty and I was like, I'm a Cap moon. I'm a Leo sun with 3 other planets in Leo, and I have Jupiter on my rising sign. So I was like, maybe this is going to be my year.
I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
Besides that,
get some sleep.
Get some sleep. Oh,
yeah.
That is music to my ears, Kitty.
Yeah.
I feel the same because I have a lot of Aquarian energy in my chart as well. So I'm definitely all about one of my favorite hashtags to use is Team Humanity. And so like, how are we using so back it up. Saturn in Pisces says to me, curate and create, if you don't have one already, a spiritual practice. Oh, it's January 11th and my computer says 11/11 right now.
I see it.
My birthday.
That's awesome. And so curate or create a spiritual practice that is going to ground you, because we might be on the runway, but when we take off in 2025, 2026, not to worry anybody, but this is kind of like, figure out how to remain grounded, stay calm, have a belief system that gets you through hard times. I don't know. And because the thing, you know, with Pluto energy is death and rebirth, right? Literally, sometimes. And we can't rebirth the thing that is actively dying right now, which is old structures, old belief systems, old patterns, old knowingness. We can't rebirth the thing until the death of the thing. And that's a very uncomfortable place to sit. And so I think a lot of what we've been coached into in the last few years is starting to really create a relationship with discomfort. And I think Saturn in Pisces is our key to having some comfort, or at least being accepting of some discomfort through your spiritual practices, through whatever gets you through your day, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditating, tapping, journaling, a gratitude practice, running, skiing, riding a bike, whatever ways in which you can find groundedness in your daily life. I think this is critical, actually. And Saturn has been in Pisces for about a year, so we've probably been working with that energy already. I know I've been feeling it and trying to really curate better, a more solid practice, a more consistent, solid practice, said the Capricorn moon, never getting it done well enough. And then Pluto into Aquarius is all about team humanity. How are we going to rebuild the new world so that it is fair and equitable for all and liberating for all? And that's kind of the energy that I see and feel in my daily life. And when I look ahead and think, okay, this is going to be an interesting year of, I think, more foundational building so that we can all be prepared for building the next the beautiful vision that we all hold in our hearts, you know?
Right. So question then, what are some of the main themes? I know you both have mentioned some Aquarius things, some Pluto things. What are some of those specific ones for this year, and either maybe like the dates or the season of them that you are aware of that are going to be significant points this year? Things for people to kind of keep an eye out for.
Okay. Kitty, do you want to jump in?
First of all, I love what you said, because it's like the plane's taking off. Figure out what your seatbelt, click it, figure out how to hold yourself there. I think that was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, the mask analogy, put it on first. You can't help
Put it on first, all of those things, because in this energy of this taking off and this transformation, one of the themes for this year is, and I'm going to borrow the word from someone else, our relationship with prophecy. How do we look at, there is discomfort, but how do we even look at the discomfort? What's the prophecy we put around discomfort? I'm actually reading a book called From Chaos to Clarity. And that is a big kind of thing this year. How do we look at what we think mankind can be, or what we limit them to be? And it's not about positive toxicity. I get that, this is real work. And a big theme is groups, because of this Pluto. And can I kind of got a really big idea of why Mars spent so much time in Gemini, like 7 months, because we needed to figure out how to align our will with holding the components of opposites, so that when we are in groups, we can develop groups that accept the diversity, not try to streamline it to be all one way, because we have the potential as human beings to have new ways to oppress each other, or new ways to expand each other. And so how do we, looking at the components of opposite, it's not mob rule, it's more what is true consensus. Consensus is I can live with this. It's not perfect. It's how I put the stuff together. And so, and as we have Jupiter is going to move into Gemini. And so since Jupiter is moving into Gemini in May, it really is about now me speaking, holding those components of opposites, me experiencing and learning those components of opposites. And groups is a huge thing this year. The groups that, what's the word I want? Are sustainable for us, bring everything that Shannon said, bring forth for ourselves, are able to hold ourselves, our circles that nourish us. And it's all right. We've been looking to let go of those things that, accepting. Recently I came to an understanding about judgment. I'm starting to use the word assessment instead. It's not judgment. I'm assessing what's going on here. As long as I keep it about me. Judging is when I tell you, you need to be something else or that you are something. Assessing is how is this for me? So that's a huge theme of this year is how are we going to, in this plane taking off, create real groups, real common vision, not new ways to oppress each other or mob rule kinds of things. And as, right across the American election, we have Pluto in that retrograde back into Capricorn for a very short period of time before it for 20 years stays in Aquarius. That's good news. That's about we've taken the vision once again and we're opening those structures up. Doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. And I think we're going to have two ways of people seeing it in those components. So, all right, Shannon.
When does that happen, first of all? So Jupiter going into Gemini, you said happens in May. Is that like beginning?
May? Yeah, I should have pulled the days out in front of me.
That's okay.
Yeah, it is in May. It is in
and
May.
Then when does Pluto move into Aquarius finally?
20th of this month, it moves back into Aquarius, Eastern Standard Time. And in September, will be retrograding back into Capricorn. It starts its retrograde.
Until November, Ginette. It officially goes into Aquarius in November. So just, around the US election and into the new.
I think it's like the 14th or 15th of November, it goes back, and it's the middle of September, it retrogrades back into that Capricorn place, truly right across the US election. So
it's really like rejigging the energy or the fit and being like, are you sure this is what you want? Would that be a way to describe it? Kind of with it going back into retrograding back into Capricorn for just a little bit before it fully solidifies into Aquarius. Is that kind of going back into that analytical sense of Capricorn and being like, okay, are you sure this is where you want to go and how you want to do it? And then it fits in and then we move forward?
It's all of those. It also pulls stuff apart. It takes it apart. It pushes the limitations. It is the energy of what matters most to us. And sometimes we have to come way down to figure out what matters most to us. It is this potential as well. So the answer to that is yes, it's all of those. So
if anybody's lived through like a Pluto transit on their sun or their moon or their rising sign, it literally is a death of self. And I can speak to that because I had that happen to me about 7 years ago, and I am completely transformed to who I was back then to who I am now, as far as like values and ideas and just a new awareness. So it's a really big deal. Pluto is a very powerful, and that's a key word to keep in mind, because it's not just destructive in its death. It actually offers us personal power moving forward, and personal power leads to collective power, right? So it is, what are we going to do with that power when we build the new thing? And then, so that's just a riff on a little Pluto thing there, since we're talking about it moving back and forth from Capricorn to Aquarius. And I would also say it's one last peek at, because it's going backwards, right? It's looking back at the Capricorn energy, one last peek at, is there anything we want to bring forward, or is this all just like breaking down? Are we just going to break this all down? Okay. So it's like one last little peek at it and then bust forward, And then back to that plane analogy, if I can, going back to Saturn and Pisces and creating a spiritual practice or just a grounding practice, because even the word spiritual is getting like overplayed and whatever.
Yes.
Right? We are spiritual beings. We all have it in us. We just need to sit still long enough to hear it, right? But that whole plane analogy, I guess we're going to carry it forward in this podcast. So when I said jokingly, put your mask on yourself first, it is the big cliche, right? You can't help anybody until you have helped yourself first, instead of dying in the seat without any oxygen, right? And that is a great analogy for why, and we've talked about this, Ginette, on a podcast that we did about grief and loss. Why do the work? Why lean into grief and loss? That's not exactly a joyride. And the answer, it's coming stronger for me as months roll on, because when we don't do the work, we cannot support anybody through anything. So much back to Saturn and Pisces and creating a grounding practice for yourself. We're really starting to realize, I think, especially in the last, I don't know, few months, when we are not grounded, when we are just triggered and reacting and just not grounded in our daily life, we are of no use to anybody else, right? So I think we're starting to understand that our personal healing is absolutely critical for a collective healing. And we don't have to look far or wide to see why it's important today. So before we go out and build the new thing, hi, Pluto and Aquarius, we really need to take time this year so back to your question, what's the theme? I see healing, 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 and more healing, because Chiron is conjuncting and trining all kinds of things all through the year. And we don't have time to get into like all the dates and all the trines and all the conjuncts, but it's fair to say Chiron is a major player. Chiron is the wounded healer. So it's about like, have we done the healing on ourselves? What did Venus do last year to us all last summer in its little retrograde? She was just playing with us to say, what are your values? Put your money where your mouth is? Is it really important to you? And so I see, when anybody asks me what's 2024, I'm like, heal and heal some more to get ready for the next 2 years. And there's a little fun in it too, because Jupiter going into Gemini is, I find, very fun, very light. And one word I'd like to add to what you had said, Kitty, about all that Gemini energy, the divisiveness of the two perspectives, is curiosity. And curiosity is a superpower in anything, right? In grief, in loss, in sitting in a room with, as a mediator or anything, it's like, how do we get anywhere without asking questions? So I love that about Gemini coming into like a real fun position. And it always feels like curious little monkey, ask more questions to get to the answers. So I just want to throw that in there too.
I love that. Yes, I absolutely, curiosity. Because there's a serious theme this year, and there's a joyful piece, and
They have to live together. They have to live together after the last 3 years that we have lived through and going to continue to live through. We have to find joy and a little bit of shits and giggles every now and again to offset the hardness of what we've lived through in the last few years and what we continue to live through. Because let's not kid anybody. It's not getting
easier. We spent our last decades with personal autonomy and power within, and this is the year, I would call it, Shannon, we practice it. We really put into practice. I hold my space. So I hold my space in this group. And
Saturn.
that allows the healing for all of us, because
Yes.
I've been playing with this. I love the Venus. That's why I kept going, what's Mars doing? Mars would let me see the components, the curiosity. Which one do I want to go to? I'm going to steal that big time.
Do it. It's one of my favorite words for Gemini energy. When I give a reading, people always are so down on Geminis, like, you're so flighty, you can't pick a thing, you're just always here, there, and everywhere. It's like,
Gemini.
yeah, you're supposed to be. Yeah, you're supposed to be. And like curious, and I'm a pretend Gemini. I get the vibe.
Yeah, it's my descendant. I can see the thing. I want to be in the middle. How do I hold that and allow both pieces of it? Gemini is an amazing peacekeeper because it wants to have fun. It wants to invite you. It wants to, So love that. This is fun.
More questions, more curiosity to get us out of this mess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like what keeps coming up too is this like group initiative and groups coming together to either create something good or create something negative. I have been talking like nonstop. Spirit brings it through every month, almost every reading, the concept of divine partnerships for 2024. It has just been nonstop and it's still being reiterated. And I love that, astrologically speaking, that coming together in groups, because divine partnerships doesn't just mean a romantic pairing, right? It's a group and family, community groups, you name it. People,
Collaboration. Yeah.
yeah, collaborating together to create something more. I absolutely love when those absolutely repeated messages are literally written in the stars.
Yeah.
That like
And
lights me
yeah.
up.
And something's coming in as you're talking about that, because we have to acknowledge the privileged seat that we sit at to have the time and the resources to work on our daily practices, right? So we have to, for the collective. There's no choice. We are sitting in the biggest seat of privilege. If we don't do it, who? If we can't help, who is going to, right? So that's another reason why you can take this year and you can lean towards a bit of selfishness towards that practice, because actually it's helping the collective as a whole. I mean,
It
yeah,
stabilizes frequencies, right? Which is what this year is about, is also stabilizing us as a species, like you guys
Right.
said. So
And it's our psychic boundaries, it's our intuition, it's holding that space. And the only way to hold that space, as Shannon said, is to hold it, is to figure out what that means, is to, and we've been practicing. Now, how is this? It's a very expressive year of putting it to action. That's what the speed's about. Lots of things coming to us to practice, lots of um, information to heal, put together, and for, change the trajectory of what, that's why it's important to understand there are new ways we could oppress each other,
yeah.
or we can accept that diversity. And to accept the diversity, we have to accept all the pieces of ourselves. And what activates us, some people use the word trigger, what activates us is an opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
Point. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for you always have new words that I learn when we hang out. I love that.
Yeah, it's so true.
I will give credit to, been a long time member of Al-Anon, and somebody once said in a meeting, I don't like trigger because that feels like I don't have any control. I like activate because then I use discernment. I'm like, that's mine for the rest of my life.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a reason that Saturn is known as the great teacher. Saturn, again, being in Pisces, this whole like grounding practice that we're working on, and Gemini, with Jupiter going into Gemini, it's like, have fun with it, play with it. Maybe coloring is your jam. Maybe something, maybe you've never tried a hobby that puts you in flow, that gives you this ability to tap into something of yourself. So have fun with it and practice it, just like you said, right? Like practice, that is Saturn. It's like, he's the teacher, he's the one that gives the 5 gold stars if you nail it. And there's always rewards if you try, if you practice,
And if you're kind of looking for where to practice, I have a group, we get together, and last night we were talking about, look where your Saturn is, what house? Where can you have this conversation in your house? Mine happens to be in the first. This is the kind of thing I can do to help develop it. Look where you can have your conversation to support that practice, that teacher, that what is important to me, planet.
Yeah. Okay, I have another question. Are there any transits or alignments or whatever that are very just very fruitful, right? Like kind of not about the healing, not about the deep work, the crumbling, and not that those are always inherently bad, but are there some that are just there to like fill our cup? Are there any like that?
I tell you, I think Jupiter going into Gemini is so playful.
It is.
I mean,
Okay.
that's a hard question for me, because I do just see this year as a healing time personally. But I also think Jupiter going into Gemini is activating something playful and joyful for us. But yeah, maybe Kitty, you have a better response, but I just see it as.
Oh, I love your response.
Well, and when you say, where's your Saturn in your chart? Mine's in the 8th house. So I'm like, is there nothing fun about healing and growth work?
Yeah.
I thought that's fun.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I think I'm warped. So yeah.
Well, I have a packed eighth house in Virgo, so I get it. It's like I'm always like, as soon as I'm done, and my Saturn is in Capricorn in the first house, so I'm going to show it to you. You're going to see it as I'm working on all of those little pieces. I guess the one that comes to mind is the total solar eclipse on April 8th. It's in Aries, and because we have this nodal axis, which is going to be shifting, right? Beginning of 2025 is like a larger astrological, and this Aries energy, because we've got Libra, who's uncovering constantly, what have I bought into that I thought was bringing me harmony, that's going, no, it's not. So I'm letting it go. I'm looking at my beliefs. Venus has been, like she said, went retrograde. That Libra energy this year and all of those lunar and solar eclipses, but the total is in Aries. It is the, that song by Sia, I'm unstoppable. It is that unstoppable. And by the way, the darkness is going to be from Texas all the way across up to Maine, up into Nova Scotia, that total solar eclipse, right across into the States through Canada. And it is, your heart is awaiting for renewal with Aries, and Aries is going to launch it. There is a light to bring the spiritual we need, the plot twist in your game. It's going to be kind of joyfully serious, which is an oxymoron. I get it up to that point. And then we have this reclaiming your game, this plot twist that says, that's where I'm going. I think it's pretty exciting, that total solar eclipse in Aries on the 8th. So that's what came to mind immediately for me.
I would be remiss not to mention that I think it's conjunct Chiron, but hey, don't let me be the Debbie Downer in the room.
Well, but Chiron in Aries is a powerful tool of, I'm taking this mask off, I'm taking this mask off, I'm going to be authentic. And what you're talking about, if I'm doing the work and I'm doing the practices every single day, Chiron in Aries says, yes, you're your authentic self. Now it's a tool. You'll be showing other people how to be your authentic self. So yeah, it's not a Debbie Downer. It's the reality of what are the choices I'm making as I get there. So.
And I think Mercury's part of that party. So what are we thinking, perceiving? Yeah. Sorry, Ginette.
Okay. Question, and this is my non-astro brain. So does it also make sense with that total solar eclipse, the Chiron and the Aries? Could that also be letting go of wounds? Like if Chiron's present and Aries is so fiery and sparky, it just kind of like lights it on fire and it's done. Like, can it also be those awarenesses that just let us release it?
The North Node is in Aries too. It's your soul. It's your soul going, throw away that stuff, man. Take those masks off. The wound is healing or healed. Now use it as a tool. What have you learned about how to be your authentic self? So yeah.
So in some ways it could be lighting up for people where they may like no longer be wounded. Right? Like sometimes we're so used to healing and healing and healing, you take the Band-Aid off and you realize, oh, it's actually healed.
Yeah. I think Venus retrograding last year throughout the summer, I think a lot of people have stories to go off of that. And I think that was the beginning of healing. And I think you're absolutely right. And also throughout the year, if I'm not mistaken, the eclipse season is always in Libra and Aries this year. So it's not just getting one kick at the can. And
we have Pisces. September 17th is in Pisces.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
You have the one introduction into the next nodal axis that steps up this year. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah.
And so I would dare say yes, Ginette, because the North Node is indicative of our collective future, like our collective soul, you can say. And the South Node is our past. So absolutely, it's about letting go and or kaboom.
Yeah.
Like.
And that goes right along actually with that partial lunar eclipse in Pisces. We're at the end of a 14-year cycle for that Pisces Neptune energy, for a brand new Aries spirit cycle. And whether that's the opening of portals into other realms, I have been hearing this whole thing about, we're going to understand that angels and our galactic friends are some of the same. And we are the only people that are separating them.
Totally. And she laughs. Ginette laughs. She's like, "Oh yeah, they've been in my living room for the last few years."
Right? Totally. Yeah, they are. We're going to be there so much more present as we move into this new understanding with spirit in Aries. And We're the ones that have separated them. Well, we have angels and we have galactics. Now they're kind of probably the same thing. So, we just had to give them a title. That's us, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's exciting. That's all of this is really interesting. And I also feel like it's really a year of like choose what you want to do with it and what you want to make of it. My sense is that this isn't like a year of the waterfall, like say 2020, where we all are just being thrown off this waterfall. We don't know where we're going. We don't know anything and we're free falling or tumbling down the hill. It feels like now we've got some street cred with this.
yeah,
And like we've got some street smarts and how to deal with ourselves and with other people. And it's like really back to personal responsibility and choices now this year. You can either make this year really good and forge forward, or you could whirl around and kind of say victim or complacency, but the choice is yours. Would you say that would be accurate? Like, is this a really like choice heavy
I would
year?
say so with Saturn and Pisces. I mean, Saturn is all about responsibility, and Saturn is all about like marking you on how hard you're working. And
Okay.
yeah, I mean, when you say the word responsibility, I think, yeah, that's Saturn and Pisces for
that
sure.
I think so. It's that trine we started the year with. What is the engine? That whole sun, that power of Capricorn in the structure I want to be, who I want to be, the bigger picture, that intuitive of who that is for me in Leo, that moon, and then Jupiter. Expand, expand, baby, expand, however you're going to do it. I do think this is what I feel is there is a separation coming too for those willing to embrace it. And there is a whirl for those who are trying to hold, what's kind of going on and keep it the same. And it's that component. Do I amplify the fear of a change, or do I the excitement of a change?
Mhm.
It's still a change. No way around the change part. No way around the change part unless you can really pull yourself off, and good luck with that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's a really exciting year. It's an 8, so that's a great number
Love
numerology
that.
wise.
Yes.
And it's the year of the dragon. So the
Mm.
the wood dragon at that. It is the earth. The wood is always in communication. Trees are always in communication. And so we are dealing with that. That's that whole Mercury piece that we've got going, the Gemini piece as Jupiter moves, Saturn and Pisces. Focus that flow, baby. Focus where you're
Mhm.
moving. So I'm excited about this year.
Yeah.
Ask me at the end of the year how that went.
I was gonna say something, but Ginette, were you gonna jump in? Because I was
No,
gonna.
no, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said the word retrograde, and it reminded me about the retrogrades, the Mercury retrogrades for the year, because everybody freaks out. Mercury's
Mhm.
retrograde.
Right.
Chiron's doing a dance with each Mercury retrograde. Hate to drag that little guy in the conversation again, but again, back to healing. So, the first one is in Aries, and then Leo, and then Sagittarius near the end of the year. And Chiron is all about it. Like Chiron is all around the Mercury retrograde. So it's in a fire sign, which is, well, I don't know, Kitty, what's your take on Mercury retrogrades in fire signs?
I'm born with Mercury retrograde, in a retrograde.
Okay.
So my first take is usually it's more other people's issues than mine. During Mercury retrograde, I inherit them because I kind of deal in life in Mercury retrograde.
Okay.
I think Mercury retrograde is a gift. It's
I
what
do
I
too.
think about it.
I do
It
too.
is, it's basically things make you pause, go inward, look at how you are communicating, you're experiencing it. Things slow down your technology. So pause. It's that pause or stop, pause, reset, stop, pause, reset. And we get it 3 times a year. What a gift that something steps in. And the fact that it's in all these fire
Yeah.
energies this year
Yeah.
is really, it's all the fire energies this year. So that's pretty interesting all by itself.
And like,
Mhm.
right, like, yeah, sort of on the heels of the eclipse in April is, I believe Chiron is conjuncting Mercury in the first Mercury retrograde, which is all about how do we perceive life? What are we thinking? How are we communicating? What's our mind tricking us into believing, you know? And so I think there's absolutely some amazing healing going on there, whether you think that's a good time or not. I do. yeah, so I just see it as very, very interesting and exciting because it's not just about Chiron. There's much more other planetary activity around all the Mercury retrogrades that we'll probably discuss as the year rolls on. But there is some fun and sudden changes, sudden happenings with Uranus having a little bit of a play in there too. So it's not all just healing, healing, healing. You can expect some sudden changes, and that could just be waking up one morning, accidentally catching a video on Instagram or something that informs you of something you knew nothing about. Like me this morning, I saw something in the garment industry and I was like, wow, just like, wow, I instantly can't look at shopping the same way anymore. Just things like that.
Yeah.
And how much of that have we had in the last few years? I would dare say quite a bit.
And that, for me, that goes back to that whole idea, what relationship do I have with prophecy when I look at these things? I really don't know the outcome. So that doom and gloom prophecy, or is it that it's an illusion of what am I projecting? And then just stay in my moment then, because
Totally.
my relationship with prophecy, which how I think when I wake up and see this is, yeah, what do I do with it? I just, that's something I'll be thinking about all year. What is my relationship with prophecy? And as those Libra energies uncover my beliefs, oh, perhaps I've got a doom and gloom prophecy in there that I didn't even know I was aligning some of my thoughts around. So
Yeah. And speaking of that prophecy piece, I really want to share too how much Spirit has taught me over the years how much prophecy is a highest probability always. And I really say that for everybody listening, that like when you hear a prophecy of something, prediction of something, it's giving a probability that at any moment choices can create changes in that, both in the direction you want it to go and maybe the direction you don't want it to go. And those are things you cannot control besides your own self. So it absolutely always comes back to, what am I going to do in this moment based on the knowledge I have at this moment? And that's where you can make choices and live your life. And if we make choices too far based on our relationship with prophecy, how we see it, it can really derail what's happening in the present moment, both good or bad, right? Because we could hear a prophecy that is like, yeah, I'm aligned with that. This is going to happen. All is going to work out. And then you don't do anything and you become complacent and you miss all the steps on the way to it. And then the same thing can happen with a more negative one, right? Like it can change. And so I love that that theme is coming up for this year of relationship with prophecy, because it's asking to tune into your own discernment and also get back into the present moment where life is happening right now. And then you'll either get there or you won't. Right?
yeah, like you said, recently for me, I am a Pisces South Node and a Virgo North Node. And so as a Pisces South Node, judgment, don't judge. So me taking the word assessment in the moment, I'm assessing from what I know versus I'm telling you what to do. I'm assessing what my next step is. And the word I got from Spirit this year, last year was compassion. I have my own words I pick, courage, whatever, was understanding. And as soon as I say it, I hear them whisper underneath, patience. Understanding is a patience, is a waiting, is it assessing in the moment. So yeah, it's I'm glad Spirit tells you that, because it's a really great reminder for me.
Yeah, me too.
And what comes to mind when you use the word patience is patience with the process. So patience with the non-understanding we have today of where we're going, the non-knowingness of how we're going to build the thing before the other thing dies, like patience in the process, which is not easy. It's not easy for anybody. And it's definitely not easy if you're going through your own personal challenges with patience in the process of whatever you're going through. So again, yeah, I just love that word, patience. Yeah, it gets me through a lot of patience and trust have been my mantra for many, many years when I'm in a jam.
I used to teach my students and younger kids there in South Africa, in a certain particular tribe, they mush the turnip. and they sing a song, Mashu Kanche Chuchua, and it just means patience because it takes so long to do it. And I used to teach the kids, like when we were in transition, sing that song. And I still sing it to myself today as I'm putting something together. When Mercury retrogrades and something goes a little awry, Mashe Kanchu Chuchua. Patience,
I love
patience.
that.
It's amazing. Yeah,
It's
I
so
love
true.
that too.
Beautiful.
So,
Maybe you
Okay.
can put that song on your website, Ginette. Just
Yeah, there you
sound
go.
recording.
Totally, right? We could all
I'm
just
I
actually
do it.
serious.
there are generations of children running around going, Mashe Kanchu. It's like, because that's what we would sing. What does that mean? Patience, you know,
Amazing.
in the
That's amazing.
transition. And that's when we would sing it, in the transition. And here we are transitioning to the air, whatever that's going to be. So
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much. This has just been so enlightening. I feel even more like positive than before. Just, I don't know, it feels like we've got good runners on, we got sturdy ground, right? So we're ready to go and our backpacks are full. We're good. We're not in flip-flops and half thrown out here ready to run, right? Like we're set. I feel that. And so, thank you so much for bringing this information through. This is beautiful. And I also want to say that I will put the links to each of you and how people can connect with you if they want to look further into readings and connections and chats and whatever. So I'll put that in the notes below or in the description box below, depending where you're watching this. And yeah, so thank you again to both of you.
Thanks for
This has
having
been
us.
thank you.
wonderful.
Thanks for having us. It's so much fun. It really is.
It
It
is
is.
fun. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so very much. And I look forward to chatting with you again next week. Have a good one.